Hello friends. I hope you all are doing well. Today video is about World War 1, so let's start the video without wasting any time. World War 1, often called the Great War, started in 1914 after Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated. This event sparked a massive conflict across Europe that dragged on until 1918. Over those 4 years, the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, went head-to-head with the Allied powers, which included Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Canada, Japan, and the United States. The war was marked by new military tech and the brutal realities of trench warfare, leading to staggering levels of death and destruction. When it finally wrapped up, the toll was over 16 million lives lost, both military and civilian. Tensions had been simmering across Europe, especially in the Balkans, for years leading up to World War I. Various alliances among European nations, the Ottoman Empire, Russia, and others had been in place, but the political chaos in the Balkans, particularly in Bosnia, Serbia, and Herzegovina, was putting these agreements at risk. The event that set off World War I happened in Sarajevo, Bosnia, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated along with his wife, Sophie, by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip on the 28th of June, 1914. Princip and his fellow nationalists were fighting to end Austro-Hungarian control over Bosnia and Herzegovina. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand triggered a quick series of events. Austria-Hungary, like many nations at the time, pointed the finger at the Serbian government for the attack and saw this as a chance to finally deal with the issue of Serbian nationalism. Since powerful Russia was backing Serbia, Austria-Hungary held off on declaring war until they got a green light from German leader Kaiser Wilhelm II, ensuring Germany would stand by them. They were worried that if Russia got involved, it could drag in its allies, France and possibly Great Britain. On the 5th of July, Kaiser Wilhelm secretly guaranteed his support, giving Austria-Hungary a sort of blank check for military backing if war broke out. Following this, the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia with such tough conditions that accepting it seemed nearly impossible. Austria-Hungary's intentions for war were clear to the Serbian government, prompting them to mobilize their army and seek help from Russia. On the 28th of July, Austria-Hungary officially declared war on Serbia, shattering the fragile peace among Europe's major powers. In just a week, Russia, Belgium, France, Great Britain, and Serbia had formed an alliance against Austria-Hungary and Germany, marking the start of World War I. Germany launched its military campaign based on the Schlieffen Plan, devised by Field Marshal Alfred von Schlieffen. This strategy involved fighting on two fronts, invading France through neutral Belgium in the west while also facing Russia in the east. On the 4th of August, 1914, German forces entered Belgium. They quickly attacked the well-fortified city of Liege, employing massive siege cannons to take control by the 15th of August. As they moved through Belgium towards France, they left a trail of devastation, targeting civilians and executing a Belgian priest accused of inciting resistance. From the 6th of September 1914, the First Battle of the Marne saw French and British troops stand against the advancing German army, which had pushed deep into northeastern France. Just 30 miles from Paris, the Allies managed to halt the German advance and launched a successful counter-offensive, pushing the Germans back across the Aisne River. This defeat dashed Germany's hopes for a swift victory in France. Both sides then dug in, leading to a grueling war of attrition on the Western Front that would drag on for over 3 years. Among the most brutal battles during this period were those at Verdun, February-December 1916, and the Battle of the Somme, July-November 1916, with the Battle of Verdun alone resulting in nearly 1 million casualties for both German and French forces. The intense fighting on the Western Front and the struggles faced by soldiers long after the war ended led to powerful artistic expressions like Eric Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front and John McCrae's poem In Flanders Fields. McCrae's poem, published in 1915, gave rise to the poppy as a symbol of remembrance. Artists such as German painter Otto Dix and British artists like Wyndham Lewis, Paul Nash, and David Bombard drew from their own experiences as soldiers in World War I. They created works that depicted the pain of trench warfare and delved into themes of technology, violence, and the ravaged landscapes left in the wake of war. On the Eastern Front, Russian troops launched an invasion into German-controlled East Prussia and Poland but were halted by German and Austrian forces at the Battle of Tannenberg in late August 1914. Even with this victory, the Russian offensive forced Germany to divert two corps from the Western Front to the east, which contributed to their defeat at the Battle of the Marne. The fierce resistance from the Allies in France, combined with Russia's ability to mobilize its massive army quickly, turned the conflict into a prolonged and brutal struggle, shattering Germany's hopes for a swift victory as outlined in the Schlieffen Plan. Between 1914 and 1916, the Russian army launched several offensives on the Eastern Front but failed to penetrate German defenses. The combination of military defeats, economic turmoil, and shortages of food and basic necessities fueled growing discontent among the Russian populace, particularly among the impoverished workers and peasants. This rising anger was directed at Tsar Nicholas II and his unpopular German-born wife, Alexandra, ultimately culminating in the Russian Revolution of 1917 led by Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks. This movement put an end to Tsarist rule and stopped Russia's involvement in World War I. In early December 1917, Russia struck an armistice with the Central Powers, allowing German forces to redirect their attention to the other allies on the Western Front. When the fighting kicked off in 1914, the United States chose to stay out of World War I, sticking to the neutral stance that President Woodrow Wilson supported. Despite this, the U.S. kept trading and shipping with countries involved in the conflict. However, staying neutral became tougher as Germany ramped up its submarine attacks on neutral vessels, including those with passengers. In 1915, Germany announced that the waters around the British Isles were a war zone, leading to German U-boats sinking several commercial and passenger ships, including some from the U.S. The public outcry over the sinking of the British ocean liner Lusitania, which was on its way from New York to Liverpool with many American passengers in May 1915, significantly shifted American sentiment against Germany. By February 1917, Congress approved a $250 million arms bill to prepare the U.S. for potential war. In March, Germany sank 4 more U.S. merchant ships, and on the 2nd of April, Woodrow Wilson addressed Congress, urging them to declare war on Germany. With World War I stuck in a deadlock across Europe, the Allies turned their sights on the Ottoman Empire, which had joined the Central Powers in late 1914. Following a botched attempt to capture the Dardanelles, which connects the Sea of Marmara to the Aegean Sea, British-led Allied forces launched a major land invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula in April 1915. Unfortunately, this invasion also ended in failure, leading to a full retreat in January 1916, after the Allies suffered around 250,000 casualties. Fun fact: Winston Churchill, who was the First Lord of the British Admiralty at the time, stepped down from his position after the Gallipoli disaster in 1916 and took on a role with an infantry battalion in France. Meanwhile, British forces were also engaged against the Ottoman Turks in Egypt and Mesopotamia, while in northern Italy, Austrian and Italian troops clashed in a series of 12 battles along the Isonzo River, which marks the border between the two countries. The First Battle of the Isonzo kicked off in late spring 1915, shortly after Italy joined the Allies. The 12th Battle of the Isonzo, known as the Battle of Caporetto in October 1917, saw German reinforcements help Austria-Hungary secure a significant victory. After Caporetto, Italy's allies stepped up their support, with British, French, and later American troops arriving to help reclaim the Italian front. When it comes to naval warfare, before World War I, Britain's Royal Navy was the undisputed leader, but the Imperial German Navy had been making impressive advancements. Germany's naval power was further bolstered by its formidable fleet of U-boat submarines. Following the Battle of Dogger Bank in January 1915, the British launched a surprise attack on German vessels in the North Sea. The German Navy decided to avoid a big showdown with Britain's powerful Royal Navy for over a year, focusing instead on its U-boats for most of its naval strategy. The largest naval clash of World War I, the Battle of Jutland in May 1916, kept British dominance in the North Sea secure, and Germany didn't try to challenge the Allied naval blockade for the rest of the war. World War I marked the first significant use of aircraft in combat. While planes didn't have the same impact as the British Royal Navy or Germany's U-boats, their introduction hinted at the crucial role they would play in future military conflicts worldwide. At the start of the war, aviation was still in its infancy. The Wright brothers had only made their first sustained flight in 1903, just 11 years earlier. Initially, planes were mainly used for scouting missions. During the First Battle of the Marne, pilots relayed vital information that allowed the Allies to identify and exploit weaknesses in the German defenses, which helped push Germany out of France. The first successful attempts to mount machine guns on aircraft happened in June 1912, in the US, but they had their flaws. If not timed right, a bullet could easily hit the plane's own propeller. The French Marine Saulnier addressed this issue by adding armored deflector wedges to protect the propeller. This model was utilized by the French, the British Royal Flying Corps, the British Royal Navy Air Service, and the Imperial Russian Air Service. Another notable aircraft was the British Bristol Type 22, which served both reconnaissance and fighter roles. In 1915, Dutch inventor Anthony Fokker enhanced the French deflector system with his interrupter mechanism, which synchronized the gunfire with the propeller's rotation to prevent accidents. His most famous aircraft during the war was the single-seat Fokker Eendeke, but he designed over 40 different planes for the German forces. The Allies introduced the Handley Page HPO-400 in 1915, the first twin-engine bomber. As aerial technology advanced, long-range bombers like Germany's Gotha GV, which debuted in 1917, began targeting cities such as London. These bombers were faster and more agile than the earlier Zeppelin raids, making them much more effective. By the end of the war, the Allies were producing 5 times as many aircraft as the Germans. On the 1st of April, 1918, the British established the Royal Air Force, or RAF, marking the first time an air force was formed as a distinct military branch, separate from both the Navy and the Army. After the armistice with Russia, Germany was able to strengthen its position on the Western Front, leaving Allied forces struggling to fend off another German attack until the much-anticipated reinforcements from the United States arrived. On the 15th of July, 1918, German forces initiated what would be their final offensive of the war, targeting French troops supported by 85,000 American soldiers and some British Expeditionary Force units during the Second Battle of the Marne. The Allies managed to repel the German assault and launched their own counterattack just 3 days later. Facing heavy losses, Germany had to abandon plans for another offensive further north in the Flanders area, which they had hoped would be their best chance for victory. The Second Battle of the Marne was a turning point in the war, shifting the momentum decisively in favor of the Allies, who went on to reclaim significant portions of France and Belgium in the next few months. When World War I kicked off, the US military had 4 all-black regiments, the 24th and 25th Infantry and the 9th and 10th Cavalry. These regiments were made up of distinguished soldiers who had already proven themselves in the Spanish-American War and the American-Indian Wars, serving in various U.S. territories. However, they weren't sent overseas to fight in World War I. The idea of black soldiers fighting alongside white troops in Europe was simply not accepted by the U.S. military at the time. Instead, the first African American soldiers sent abroad were placed in segregated labor battalions, where they were limited to low-level tasks in the Army and Navy, and completely excluded from the Marines. Their work mainly involved unloading ships, moving supplies from train stations and bases, digging trenches, cooking, maintaining equipment, removing barbed wire, and burying fallen soldiers. Due to backlash from the black community and civil rights groups regarding their treatment and the quotas imposed on African American soldiers, the military established two black combat divisions in 1917, the 92nd and 93rd Divisions. These divisions were trained separately and not very well in the U.S., leading to mixed results in the war. The 92nd Division faced criticism for their performance during the Meuse-Argonne campaign in September 1918, while the 93rd Division achieved greater success. France, facing dwindling troops, reached out to America for backup. General John Pershing, who led the American Expeditionary Forces, dispatched regiments from the 93rd Division, knowing that France had a history of fighting alongside black soldiers from their Senegalese colonial army. The 369th Regiment of the 93rd Division, famously known as the Harlem Hellfighters, fought bravely for an impressive 191 days on the front lines, longer than any other EF regiment. Their heroism earned them the Croix de Guerre from France. In total, over 350,000 African American soldiers served in various roles during World War I. By the fall of 1918, the Central Powers were falling apart on every front. Even though the Turks had a win at Gallipoli, they faced later defeats from invading forces and an Arab revolt that wrecked the Ottoman economy and devastated their lands. By late October 1918, the Turks ended up signing a treaty with the Allies. Austria-Hungary was crumbling from within due to rising nationalist movements among its various ethnic groups and reached an armistice on the 4th of November, with resources running low on the battlefield, growing discontent at home, and the surrender of its allies. Germany had no choice but to seek an armistice on the 11th of November, 1918, which marked the end of World War I. At the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, the Allied leaders expressed their wish to create a post-war world that would prevent future conflicts of such a massive scale. Some optimistic participants even started calling World War I the war to end all wars. However, the Treaty of Versailles, signed on the 28th of June, 1919, didn't quite live up to that ambitious vision. Burdened with war guilt, hefty reparations, and barred from joining the League of Nations, Germany felt deceived into signing the treaty, believing that any peace would be a peace without victory, as President Wilson had suggested in his famous 14-point speech in January 1918. As time went on, resentment towards the Versailles Treaty and its creators simmered in Germany, eventually contributing to the outbreak of World War II 2 decades later. World War I claimed the lives of over 9 million soldiers, with an additional 21 million wounded. Civilian casualties were close to 10 million. The two countries hit hardest were Germany and France, each sending about 80% of their male populations aged 15 to 49 into combat. The political turmoil surrounding World War I also led to the downfall of four long-standing imperial dynasties: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and Turkey. World War I caused huge social changes, with millions of women stepping into jobs to fill the gaps left by men who went off to fight or didn't return. This global conflict also played a role in the spread of the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918, which tragically claimed the lives of around 20 to 50 million people. Often called the first modern war, World War I saw the widespread use of new military technologies like machine guns, tanks, aerial combat, and radio communications. The devastating impact of chemical weapons like mustard gas and phosgene on both soldiers and civilians during the war led to a strong public and military backlash against their use. This resulted in the Geneva Convention Agreements of 1925, which limited the use of chemical and biological weapons in warfare and are still in place today. That's it for today's guys about World War I. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.